This week's Torah portion, we're in Matot Masei. We're told that the heads of the tribes are meant to be in charge of the vows, right? They're told to be careful when any one of us, individuals, make a vow to God. And Rabbi Raphael, the angel Raphael Berduga, wants to understand, what's the connection? I would have thought that if we're talking about vows to God, God would say to Moses, tell all the Israelites, vows are very important. You vow something in the name of God, lest it be, in vain. You all need to be very careful. What's this business of being told that Moses says to the heads of tribes, you guys are in charge of this. Any one of them make a vow to me, you gotta make sure that they keep their word. What's this on about? Rabbi Raphael, the angel Raphael Berduga, as always, well, in fact, this time he doesn't bring the beautiful words of King David, but his son Solomon in Ecclesiastes to explain this idea of the vow, and it's very unique. So we're told in Ecclesiastes, it says, when you make a vow to God, do not delay paying it, for he has no liking for fools. What you vow, pay. Rabbi Raphael's first question is, I never noticed this, perhaps you hadn't either, this is the only time where Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, mentions a commandment from the Bible in Ecclesiastes. Only time. What's so important about a vow that King Solomon decides, we need to talk about this? Moreover, surely if King Solomon's going to talk about a vow, there must be some chiddush. There must be some innovative idea. Otherwise, if it's set, we're told in the Torah, pay the vow, don't delay. Well, what's King Solomon need to come and say this as well? It's the only one he chooses. And we're going to connect this to the heads of tribes and why it's their role. By the way, I forgot to mention, this Torah portion is dedicated to Ilana, because Ilana has this thing with nedarim, with vows. She's always fascinated about vows. So Ilana, this is for you. So we're going to start off with King Solomon. And he says that if you look at the verse, the way King Solomon phrases it, the verse says, when you make a vow to God, it says Elohim. Elohim, and not Hashem. Elohim is God's name for judgment. He says you need to understand, right? You would have thought, here's why King Solomon sees it as important. He says, when do we usually vow? Because the sages tell us vowing is not a good thing. You shouldn't vow, you shouldn't swear on God's name. However, if you're going to make a vow, right, in time of need, it's a mitzvah to make a vow. We know this from Jacob, right? So if you're in need, it's praiseworthy to vow to God because he gets you out of the situation. But then, you get out of it. Everything's finally okay. And then your Yetzer Hara, your evil inclination starts kicking in at working over hours and starts saying, no, it was a time of need. You didn't really, you don't really have to pay back. And King Solomon says, notice this is your Yetzer Hara. But remember, and this is why he uses the name Elohim. He says, because King Solomon wants to teach us, it's judgment. Just like you asked for God to get you out of that band, oy va'avoy if you don't pay back. And not only that, but pay back immediately, do not delay. Why? Because if not, God will take it back on interest. God will take it back on interest. Every day that you delay paying back that vow, he says, just like God gives us, right, all of our wealth, everything that we have is from God. And if ever a person doesn't want to take it back, Rabbi Raphael says, doesn't want to pay back, God has two ways of getting back at us. Two ways. Theft. Someone steals. It's not by accident. You at one point took something that wasn't yours, you made a vow that you shouldn't have, or you'll make a deal that you'll think it's a fine business deal, and you'll get screwed on the interest rates, you'll get screwed on something else, and suddenly God's doing this because it's paying back. So King Solomon's important for him to understand, to make this distinction. If you vow, A, pay back without delay. Why? Because it's midat hadin. Because you ask God to help you in time of need, make no mistake, it's him, pay back immediately, otherwise you're going to be in trouble. The only time King Solomon refers to a commandment. And then why is it so important for the heads of tribes to be in charge of the vows that any one of us individuals make? Because the sages taught us that the make or break between us beating our enemies is the vows we keep or don't keep. That's the make or break. You want to beat your enemies? The vows you keep. And that's why God says to Moses, you tell the heads of tribes, if there's one thing they've got to be in charge of, to make sure, because why? Because Kol Yisrael Eravim Zeh Bazeh, because all Israelites are in charge, are responsible for their brethren. So when it comes to vows, yes, even though you make your own personal vow, we're all in the same boat together. So that's the thing the heads of the tribes have to take care of, because that's going to be the make or break between whether we win or lose. And as King Solomon taught us, between how God is going to behave with us in the future, thoughts on vows and the Torah portion of Matot. Shabbat Shalom.